against all the evil that hell can conjure. All the wickedness that mankind can produce will send unto them only you.
What are you afraid of? Maybe something as simple as the dark. Maybe you fear the unknown. Maybe the uncanny valley. Something that looks human, but something's off. You fear insects? Or perhaps you fear death. If you're any of these, allow me to introduce you to a game from 2017 called As mentioned before, Little Nightmares is a game from 2017 created by Tarsier Studio and publishes by Bandai Namco. Players take control of Six, a young girl who uses a combination of stealth, puzzles, and light platforming to escape from the Maw, a large boat which also serves as an all-you-can-eat buffet for the deformed creatures that inhabit the ship. Along the way, eating whatever she can get her hands on, with food, greed, and consumption being the main themes of the game. The game uses visual storytelling, allowing you to come up with as many theories as to what the hell is going on here, or why Six is even here to begin with, to your heart's content, with it never fully giving you all the answers, much like how storytelling is used in the FNAF series, or in... oh god. Or in... Shut up! It gives an interesting mystery without leaving you completely in the dark. As mentioned before, in the story section, you must use a combination of light platforming, puzzle solving, and stealth to survive, whether it be climbing up the handles of a sock drawer to get a key, or hiding under a table to avoid the monsters. Most of your game will be climbing up or hiding under objects. However, the things you climb or hide under are normal household objects, but I'll talk about that later. This can be a bit tricky for certain areas, however, as the camera is constantly positioned to the right of your character, or as the devs called it, the dollhouse perspective, which makes going through doors a bit of a hassle, especially when you're being chased by the game's small but unique cast of enemies. These being the janitor, a small man who is blind, only being able to listen to your footsteps, but has freakishly long arms to grab you with. The twin chefs are the tall cooks of the Maw, who chase after you but are a bit too slow due to their weight. They don't have any special powers or anything, but since there's two of them, you have to keep an eye on both, as while one may be distracted, the other could be right there. The guests are the people who come to the Maw yet can never leave, as they satisfy their never-ending hunger by gorging on food served to them, which in turn has turned them into grossly obese monstrosities that once they see you, will proceed to flip over the table and crawl on the ground just to eat you. And finally, the lady. A tall, thin woman who dons a white mask and kimono, using some sort of black magic to keep you, to attack you. But as described by the devs, the lady casts the hypnotic spell that keeps the engine running. Six, however, is defenseless, only having a lighter to aid her in the dark, along with her ability to climb and run. Have you ever seen a Tim Burton movie or read a Dr. Seuss book before? If so, then you got a pretty good idea of how most of the game looks in terms of level design and creature design. The monster design specifically reaches that perfect middle ground of creepy and stomach-turning without going into the realm of creepypastas who think killing a child in an overly violent fashion makes their story scary, as each enemy has some sort of deformity to them, like the janitor being blinded by his own skin, only having the function of his freakishly long arms to aid him. Or how about the guests, who through years and years of eating have become obese monsters who lost all sense of humanity, only knowing that they must eat. As mentioned before, Six is a young girl who dons a bright yellow raincoat, as her somewhat thin, almost frail body shows she rarely eats, which explains the random spikes of hunger. Cages big enough for anyone that is about the same size of Six lay strewn about the inside of the maw, giving you some idea as to what is going on without fully telling you. The kitchen has meat hooks she uses as a reverse zip line. Raw meat and fish, just usual kitchen things. Yet something seems off, but again, later. The last two levels resemble that of a Chinese or Japanese restaurant and just a regular house/apartment. It may not be that interesting, but it shows the disconnect in how the workers are in these somewhat messy or unkempt spaces, while the guests and the lady herself live in these well-kept and, in the case of the lady, beautiful areas. Now, as I mentioned before, most of the things you will encounter are household objects, as Six is roughly the same size as a paper cup, meaning things like beds, drawers, tables, whatever, are now giant structures that tower over you. They bend and turn in ways no normal object does. It gives this feeling of intimidation and fear as you traverse the levels, as it plays off of childhood fears, which sets up the tone/theme that you're a scared child stuck in a world they shouldn't be in. Almost a fish out of water kind of thing, but instead of popular girls and nerdy friends, you get black leeches and grotesque beings that want you dead. Sound is important. Seriously though, the sounds every enemy, object, whatever it is just as important as the visuals, as it helps you know what is going on, and if the enemy has spotted you or not. The leeches have their own sound, the janitor has his own sound, the twin chefs have their one sound. You get the point. Everything has its own unique sound that, 1, helps you understand all you need to know, and 2, immerses you in the game world, which adds tension, which leads to your heart having a brief meeting with God. On that note, the sound design is beautiful. From every step you take to the gnomes running away, it all comes out in a clear-cut fashion. You could almost make it ASMR if you had the right headphones. The soundtrack, however, is not great, in my opinion. It's more atmospheric to keep the tone in check, and while I'm a fan of most tracks, they just don't do it for me. Half the time when playing the game, I barely noticed it unless I was being chased by an enemy, and when I listened to it on its own for myself, I just couldn't get into it. Not to say you won't, but for me, I like at least 3 or 4 tracks at most. Apart from that, I don't got too much to say about it. Who knows, man, maybe I've been listening to too much Doom music to fully appreciate it. Oh yeah, you know what time it is. Time to drop some hardcore spoilers on ya. So you know the drill. If you haven't played the game yet, get out. If you have, or don't care about spoilers, then stick around. Alright, let's go. So you guys remember how I said food and consumption are major themes of the story? Well, after running away from the guests and eating a gnome, you make it to the end game boss, the lady, and after using a mirror to attack the lady, you start to get hungry again. And with no food around, Six opts to take a bite out of the lady, killing her and taking her powers. Using these newfound powers, you march down a hallway, killing off the guests, eventually leaving through a doorway. And if you manage to find and give hugs to the other gnomes, they'll show up at the end before we fade to credits. Thus concludes Little Nightmares, and after the credits, and a thank you for playing message, you are booted back to the main menu. It's a perfect send-off to what is one of the best horror games of 2017. Now, that ending seems a bit dark, but don't worry, it gets darker, as many have theorized that the lady is actually the mother of Six, and wants to kill Six because she was jealous that her daughter was more beautiful than her. But hey, that's just a theory.
A game theory! Thanks for watching!
In conclusion, Little Nightmares is a great game. It blends horrors like Resident Evil and Fatal Frame with platforming adventure games like Mario and Shantae into a perfect mixture that anyone can get into. Definitely a must-get title in my opinion. If you can't get enough of this nightmare, there's a mobile game titled Very Little Nightmares and the sequel Little Nightmares 2 that came out this year. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Later!
着の血を焦がす寡黙な炎おびき寄せられた神々の化身恐れを知らぬ剣が貫く
目指す場所とはまだ見ぬ定め近づいてくる決戦の時打つべき